Hey everyone, this is Alden over at Cobblers Plus in Denver. Today we're going to be working on a pair of these Florsheim Imperials. We're not doing anything too major or crazy to them today. We're just replacing the heels on these, as well as stripping down this edging here and then treating the upper. Now, with a lot of these older Florsheims like this, a lot of gentlemen do prefer to have it original with the heel there, with that V-Clit in there. With the leather heel base, or heel of course, but this gentleman prefers something that's going to be a little bit more grippy, so he decided to go with the JR original heel like that there. That little bit of rubber will help with the durability and a little better with the grip, where the metal V-Clit that goes on here, usually unfortunately it doesn't tend to like to grip very easily. It's very slippery. Some people call it a death trap actually, but you know, whatever works. The metal V-Clit will definitely last longer because again it is metal versus rubber, so you know, but the rubber will at least be safer to walk with. And then as far as the edging here, it's going to be stripped down because the gentleman wants it in more of like a neutral color to show the different layers of material in here. We've got the welt, the midsole, and the sole on there, and he wants to have that a little more visible, like a natural leather look to it. Alright, so we'll go ahead and get started. Do want to mention also this gentleman maybe checking out this video. He's came to us from a few Facebook groups that we're a part of, and if you're a fan of these kinds of shoes, you may want to check them out. There's Florsheim, or Vintage Florsheim Enthusiasts on Facebook. It's a group as well. The other one is the Allen Edmond Enthusiast Group, also known as AEE, and then there's the Alden Enthusiast page too. Really great groups, very friendly guys. They post stuff that they're selling, you know, they ask for advice, pointers and tips on how to maintain things, and of course some ranting and raving about quality control. Of course, can't avoid that. You know, when you got a great pair of shoes and then there's something that starts to come up, somebody's gonna have something to complain about. So we've got the heel off. You can see that how they got the V-Clit notch out like that right in the center right there, which is really cool, but it is a bit of a challenge to do sometimes because through Florsheim they actually had a little press machine that did that, where the cobblers like us, we have to notch it out carefully by hand. Now that's on leather. Now if we were to say do the V-Clit on say a rubber one like that, the V-Clit has to go to the very edge of the heel. It can't be centered, well, not centered exactly, but it can't be put like that where there's a little bit of the material there. It has to be put on right there to the very edge, and you know, almost, I guess you can say, hanging off, because the rubber, unfortunately, you know, that's not enough surface area for it to adhere to the base right there, and so it will get stretched out and just rip out a giant chunk out of it very quickly. So anybody that's a big fan of the V-Clits, we could definitely put them on, but if it's a rubber heel that you have or a combination heel like this JR one here, that rubber cannot accommodate that same type of feature there, where the leather, or the rubber in other words, kind of sticks out on the more outer edge, where the V-Clit will have to go more like that. On the leather ones, we could definitely do it like that, like they did, because it's harder material. The harder materials, they hold up better. But anyways, that heel definitely came off nicely with all the nails and everything, and we're of course going to be putting in new ones. If I could find my pliers, we're going to be putting on new nails in a different form and pattern on here anyways, not the same way that they did on these Florsheims, because again we're doing a different set of heels on these. Right, there we go. There's the little V-Clit, all nicely rusted up already. Unfortunately, these V-Clits, as well as the nails, they're well, the nails are steel, but the V-Clits, they're like a mixture of different metal alloys and stuff, and steel is the main one that's in there, so of course it's going to rust up. It's going to be very durable, but it's going to rust up. Okay, so tap off some of the dust and rust on there. Sorry, it's been very hectic and busy here, so I'm running around like a madman trying to get things done quickly. And what I'm using here is actually called a heel pry. If you've seen some of my other videos, this is like a must-have for Cobblers multi-tool. It's slightly curved there, you can see, and it's flat, well, semi-flat on the edge here, like that, almost like a screwdriver, but wider and not too sharp either, like a knife, and it allows us to get in certain areas and pry off heels, soles, and all sorts of things. It's our best multi-tool, I guess you can say, that we use. Of course, it won't do everything for us though, but you get the idea. And I'm hammering it down just because I want to make sure anything that may be sticking up gets flattened out instead of getting sanded out. At this point, I'm just going to go ahead and sand everything out, get it all glued up. I'm not going to waste your time with the sanding and getting everything glued up, but you will get to see me sanding out all the edges everywhere once I've got the heels on. So we'll see you back in just a little while then. Alright, so I've got the heels on now and sanded out the edge a little bit on our rough sander. Now at this point we're going to move on to our other machine that's got a smoother sanding belt, as well as what's called a numb keg up here. It's kind of like a finishing wheel that just spins around. And down here we have a brister cone. You can't see it, but it's basically a cone-shaped sander that will help us get on the inside here to kind of sand out this area of the heel. So we'll go ahead and get started now. Alright, so we got everything all sanded out now. I forgot to mention that, of course, we're at this point where we're going to be sanding out the sole area because the gentleman wanted to have it more of that neutral color on it anyways. And we also added this little notch here. It's called a gentleman's notch. That usually comes on a lot of the more vintage style Florsheims like this, and of course add it the same way. This was originally intended not to catch on cuffs, and as well as putting on pants over your shoes. This was done a very long time ago in order to prevent pants from creasing, and this little notch was placed in not to catch on the pants and potentially rip them. But it's kind of like a tradition that we cobblers still continue on with it. So at this point now it's all ready. I'm going to go ahead and blow off the dust and start treating the edges all around. So we'll see you back in just a little bit. Alright, so we're back here again. Now I forgot that before treating the edges we gotta make sure we treat the uppers, so that we do everything at the same time on these. So we're gonna go ahead and start out by cleaning these up. Now in your case you would probably know exactly what you used on your uppers, but we're not sure what may have or may have not been used on these. So we're gonna use our Saphir Renomat to remove any polishes, creams, oils, waxes that may have been, kind of embedded here, whether they're, high quality or low quality. We don't know, but we still gotta try to clean it up a bit. So of course I took out my laces, well, not my laces, but I took out the laces out of these. So we're gonna go ahead and clean everything up. Any stubborn spots, just a little extra attention needed. Now, I did forget to mention also that, I mentioned all those groups online, all the enthusiast groups, but there's one that I really particularly like a lot, and I hope some of you may be familiar enough with them, but Waxed and Dyed is what it's called. These guys do some amazing stuff on there. They're all about, you know, doing certain patina work, you know, re-dyes of shoes. Like, they make customized work and it looks really cool. And I mean, there are some professionals on there. There are some who are just kind of novices and beginners and pros, and it's just a really cool community to really check out. Just even just to see, to appreciate what they have going on there. You don't necessarily need to be, you know, somebody completely into it, but you know, if you get on that group, you might actually be so interested that you may start bugging us saying, hey, do you have such and such dye color? Do you have this particular pigment of dye? You know, this product, these guys are always talking about different polishes, creams, you know, dyes as well, what they use. It's really cool. They could take this pair of Florsheim and completely drastically change it on there. So I just wanted to give them a shout out. It's Waxed and Dyed on Facebook. I can't remember honestly if they have an Instagram page. I haven't been getting on Instagram myself all that much lately, so I apologize. Anyone that's part of that group, I can't remember if you guys have one. If you do, somebody please comment down below with the link for that Instagram page. I would greatly appreciate it. I should probably join you guys on there too, but you guys do some awesome work there. But anyways, we've got the uppers all treated on these. So now, I actually didn't mention it to this gentleman, but we were going to take it a step up and use the Saphir Medaille D'Or. Originally we agreed on doing the Saphir Beauty Decure, but we decided to kick it up a notch for him and do the Medaille D'Or stuff for him. And I don't know, I guess I'll just mention his first name, JJ. Thank you for finding us. He actually found us through watching some of our YouTube videos and joining those groups online too. So, you know, I'm gonna do you a little bit of a treat. I hope you're watching this. So we're gonna go ahead and allow this actually to dry because we want that turpentine to evaporate a little bit more out of the Saphir Renomat. Of course, we're going to be using next, where'd it go? Renovator. There it is. Our Renovator next to condition the uppers and allow a few minutes for that to soak in and really bring back the nutrients to the upper. The Renovator from the Medaille D'Or line, of course, the key base for it is water to give it some light cleaning and kind of have a base. But the key ingredients as far as the conditioning aspect is your mink oil and a little bit of lanolin, as well as some beeswax in there to kind of give it your base shine. Now, your very most key product, of course, is going to be the Renovator. A lot of people have nicknamed it the liquid gold of, you know, all shoe care products, basically, just because it does a little bit of what you need. You know, that water is going to do a very light cleaning. Again, it's not solvent based like the turpentine in here, but it's going to do a very light cleaning, kind of like, say, a very weak saddle soap or an easy cleaner because of that water. And then that mink oil and lanolin will really restore that nutrients, and then the beeswax in it, once it dries, will help protect it and as well as give it a little bit of a shimmer as well. So if you were to pick just one product to use ever, you know, you'd want to go for the Saphir Medaille D'Or Renovator. They do have it from the Beauty Decure line, which is a step down from this one. It doesn't have the lanolin and it's not quite as refined, but even that's going to be better than a lot of other products out there on the market. So highly recommend if you are a shoe enthusiast, if you're a beginner, if you're advanced, doesn't matter what it is, Saphir Renovator, I'm sorry, is what you want to go for. So I'm going to let these dry and I'll be back in just a little bit. Alright, so we've given these a bit of time to dry and let everything kind of evaporate out of there, the turpentine mainly. So now we're going to go ahead and condition that. Now, I like to use the dauber brushes personally just because you're able to get into the nooks and crannies a little bit better, especially around this welt area on the inside there. Really makes it a lot easier to get inside there because, again, the welt is still leather on almost, well, not all the shoes and boots out there, but most of them. And at least these Florsheims, they definitely have a leather one, so got to give it a little bit of love and condition. Now I'm just going to grab a larger horsehair brush like that there, and just buff it up. Now if you're doing shoe shines yourself for the first time, or you're getting into it, or even if you're, somebody who's been doing it for a long time, I see a lot of posts online asking if one brush or two brushes is fine. At the very least, you want to have two brushes always. So one for your dark colors, one for your lighter colors. Now we usually have one for our tans and beiges, our medium browns such as chocolate, certain cognac colors, light brown of course. Now we've got our medium browns, and then our dark browns. We've got our navies and other blues, our reds, and of course our black. And for each one of those categories too, we've got some for the shell cordovan, the oiled leathers, the finished leathers. So different, we have different brushes for a lot of different things. But at the very least, you want to have two. We always recommend that. If you have more than that, by all means, if you want to have 4, 5, 6, I think 10 might be pushing it if you're not a professional, in other words, but 10 I think could be your limit, I guess you could say. But this one, in other words, is the same one that I use for my medium browns, such as this one here. And after applying the renovating cream here, I could use the same brush right over the top of it like that to kind of buff it up slightly. Helps remove some excess and get all that taken care of. I also applied the renovator, of course, around the edges here, and that kind of gives it that more finished, I guess you could say, look, at least, so it doesn't look too rugged. Now, side note also, if you have the Saphir products, don't over tighten these lids. I have a bad habit of stripping them all the time because they are aluminum and this is a glass jar. Be very careful, just finger tight. I've stripped, this one's stripped too, it just keeps spinning and spinning. So I have a bad habit of stripping ever since I was a kid, stripping everything. But anyways, enough of my childhood. So at this point, you can stop if you'd like, of course. That you've got a little bit of a cleaned up, shimmered look a little bit with that Saphir renovator there. But we're going to step it up now. We're going to use the pigmented number, what was this? I forget, 37 medium brown for these ones. Now you can tell that the medium brown is a little bit darker, but the pigment is very transparent in this. So as far as the Saphir Medaille D'Or products go, the medium brown seems to match this one the best and help restore the color. I did test it out in a separate spot, and of course I cleaned it up with the Reno mat afterwards anyways. I did it before even treating it with the Reno mat just to double check to see how it turns out, and it seemed like this medium brown worked the best. I tried the light brown as well, and it just didn't go on right, it seemed like. But again, because the pigments are fairly transparent still in here, they're fairly strong, but at the same time they still have some transparency to allow the original coloring and variation to show through. So if you're wanting to say change the color of these, from this color to black, for example, you can use the black on there, but it's only going to darken it. It's not going to drastically change the color. It'll start to change more and more over time, but not to such a degree where it'll be black completely. So, alright, got that applied on there. Now we want to make sure we allow this little bit of time to allow that turpentine to evaporate some. And I'll go ahead and finish up the other one real quick. I gotta go grab that as well, so I'll be right back anyways. Alright, sorry about that. I didn't finish it up off camera, but I had a few other things I had to mention real quick beforehand. Now, the product I'm currently using right now is the pigmented Pomadier cream. And the Pomadier cream, of course, it's got the color in it, and it's got more waxes and solvents in there. It has more turpentine in there, mainly, of course, to soften up the waxes, to allow the pigment to penetrate into the leather better. And because it's got more waxes in there, this will definitely take your shine to the next step up from that. The renovator is going to be a good base start, but this is going to be your next step up, definitely, and to help restore color a little bit better too. Now, because the turpentine, you got to make sure you allow it to evaporate nicely before really wearing them or anything else. And it doesn't take too long. About 5 to 10 minutes is perfectly fine. Even just if you've got multiple shoes lined up, if you go through all of them, say with the Renomat first, by the time you're done with your third pair or something, that first pair you start out with is ready to move on to the Renovator, and then by the time you're done with that third pair again, your first one is ready for this, and just kind of cycle like that. Usually that's what we do as well here, because we have multiple shoes we're working on at the same time, but I try to slow it down for you for these videos so that you can see just on a single pair of shoes what we're doing, and hope everyone appreciates that a little bit. But I enjoy it. I've been having some fun with it. But anyways, this first one is basically all done now. And again, you just take that same horsehair brush and just buff it up, remove a little bit of the excess. And voila, starts to bring up a little bit more of that shine. Can't really tell too much on camera, but yep, that's how it looks like. So this one's all done. This one I got to give it just a few more minutes to dry before I really feel comfortable with buffing it. I mean, you can technically buff it afterwards, but I've noticed that when you start to buff it after, you do get a little bit of streaking left from the horsehair bristles. Even though they're very soft, you still get very small, minor streaking, and I try to avoid that a lot of times. But at this point, I'm also going to put a little bit of a treatment here on the bottom of the heel, because it just seems really off in color. I mean, I could technically leave it like this and leave the original coloring on it, but I'll give it a little bit of a treatment at least. So I'll go ahead and take care of that, and I'll be right back. Alright, so we're back here again. I've taken care of the bottom. It's a little bit darker there now, so it tends to match a little bit. Nothing too serious. It's our usual edge dressing that we put on the sides. I just put it on the bottom and wiped it off quickly. And then the other shoe I buffed up as well, giving it good amount of time to dry as well. Now at this point, I'm going to move on to our Pate Deluxe wax from Saphir's Medaille D'Or line, using the medium brown as well on it. It seems to match it fairly well. I could probably, no, we'll stick to the medium brown on that, just because the pigment is much lower even, and we'll go ahead and give it a good coat with some coloring as well in case it starts to wear down a little bit. But we're just going to use our fingers to apply. No rags, none of that stuff. The fingers directly give you a little bit more control as far as how much you're applying on there, so you're not applying too much wax. Again, if you're trying to get a really high gloss shine, that's when you start using a cloth. But either way, this step has to be taken to give you a good wax base coat to work off of as well. Alright. Now, I always start out with the toe, allowing it to dry a little more, because by the time I'm done with the rest of the shoe, I apply a second coat on the toe there, and then as well as the heel. This does have a bit more waxes in there, so it does have to have turpentine. It has the beeswax as well as a few other ones, and the other key one is carnauba wax, which is a lot harder than a beeswax. So that's what really starts to bring out more of a shine, or the harder waxes. So if you're after that shine, you definitely want to use something that's intended for that. If you want a condition, it's better to use something intended for that. Color restoration, again, what you have to do is use what's intended for it. As far as something that's a one-size-fits-all type of thing, there are things and products like that out there, but they're just not good. I mean, they're not good for the leather. They can be fairly harmful if you're applying a mixture of a bunch of things all at once. And at the same time, also, your shines don't last nearly as long, so you have to apply more and more of it. And that's just not an okay thing. Where this here, it's an all-natural ingredients in all these Saphir products. So it's safer for your leathers, And because your shines also last longer with these products, you don't have to apply it nearly as much. You know, after a while, say your shoes start to look a little bit raggedy, I always recommend take a horsehair brush first and just buff it over. You know, just go through it, try to bring up that shine. You're usually supposed to have a horsehair brush anyways, at least one or two in your closet or wherever you may be taking off your shoes, so that at the end of the day when you come home you can just buff it off real quick, get any excess dust or dirt off of there. And then also it's a good idea to do so before you leave too, to kind of help bring up a bit more of that shine. And with the Saphir products, that's really gonna work out very well, so that you're not having to shine your shoes nearly as often if say you're a bit short on time. You know, usually you're too busy, but every now and then you're able to sit down and shine a few pairs of shoes. This will cut down a lot on it, on having to do those whole processes. Okay, so I've got that second coat on the toe. Now with the waxes, I recommend about 15 minutes for them to dry. I mean, you can do it a little bit quicker if you're strapped for time, stick it in front of the fan or something, but ideally it's best to allow those turpentines to, well, the turpentine to really evaporate out of there nicely, and just leave behind the waxes, and that's what you're going to use to give it that nice final glow. So I'm going to go ahead and set this guy aside and do the other one, and same thing. And yep, we'll just move on after that. So I'll go ahead and do this one off camera so I'm not wasting much of your time. So I'll see you back here in just a little bit. Now I almost forgot before I continue on. At this point actually it's perfect time for me to start running some nails in here. And before we do that, again, keep forgetting everything. Take care of your brushes. If you're using dauber brushes of any kind, make sure you clean them up. Just take them, rub them on a dry rag. This is the one from the Renovator cream, and so we just got to make sure we kind of help clean it off. And you can see some of that dirt coming off of it. You know, there was quite a bit of grime there between the welt. I mean, even though I kind of brushed it beforehand, when you get in there a little more with the Renovator, it does take out some of that as well. But anyways, at this point, I'll go ahead and start getting ready to put the nails into the heel base here. Now I haven't really thought up quite a pattern yet, but I'll probably do triples, and I just eyeball them. There's no direct science for it or anything. Go through with the punch all like this and get the holes kind of prepared for us to be able to put the nails in. Because if I just put the straight nails in, they could end up going crooked on me, digging into the heel, and just doesn't look good. Okay, so just like that there, just lines of threes everywhere. And these little round-headed brass tack nails like that, I actually had ordered them from Europe. I think it was the UK, I believe. Because surprisingly, I can't find them anywhere here in the US, and nothing even close. But thanks to a gentleman cobbler by the name of Steve DeBleck, sorry Steve, I can't pronounce your name, Steve D, I'll say, from Beatles Leatherworks out in Virginia. Give him a shout out as well. Doing a lot of shout outs in this video, but thank you, good sir, pointing me in the right direction. I've been really happy with these nails. And you know, there's another group also, if you're a cobbler or a shoe shiner or somebody who's in the professional industry. There's another group also, I'll give a shout out to SRI, Shoe Repair International. Now that one, of course, not everyone can be accepted into, because that's more exclusively for the cobblers in the industry and shoe specialists and leather workers. So if you're just plain a plain Joe, I'm sorry, but you can't join that group. There's another group though, however, North American Shoe Rebuilders. That one is open to the public. That one, there are cobblers on there, there's the general public, and we just kind of give recommendations, advice, and just kind of talk things over a little bit sometimes. And that one I highly recommend. If you're not a cobbler, go ahead and join it. If you are a cobbler, join it as well, and put your contact information in the group too. That's a great place to some of the cobblers are trying to put together for, you know, the general public to get in contact with some great cobblers. And so would love to have you on that page there. And I really did a number today with the shout outs on different groups on Facebook. Next I'm gonna have to do Instagram. I just gotta get on there a little more often. Okay. Now I was debating on putting some nails in the back of the heel here, whether I should or shouldn't do it, but I think I probably will. Now the rubber is a little bit harder to do because I can't punch through it with the all that easily and have a good hole left behind, because that rubber likes to close up. Oh, dang it. Lost a nail. So that I'm not wasting anyone's time, I am going to go ahead and finish out nailing all this, and I'll show you what it looks like at the end afterwards. So we'll see you back here in just a little while. Alright, so I've got all the nails put in there. You can see all the threes there of nails. And then I put some off center right here on the corner. That's usually the corner that gets worn out. That's why this heel's at a slant like that, because usually it's that outer edge that gets first point of impact when you're walking. So that'll help extend that life just a little bit more with those brass nails in there. And I think it looks pretty good. Again, usually these are of course eyeballed all the time. They're not exact measurements, but kind of shows a little bit more character that way. So now the turpentines had plenty of time to really dry up nicely. We're just going to go through with our horsehair brush and just buff it over slightly. Now the friction at this point is what starts to bring out more and more of that shine. And don't put too much pressure. Just fast, brisk motion, light pressure. There we go. Definitely has more of a shimmer to it than that one there. Alright, now you could always take it a step up using the Saphir mirror shine that they have. It's got a lot more harder waxes, the carnauba wax in there, and a lot less turpentine, but it's a very time-consuming process, in other words. So it's one of those that definitely come at a premium cost for that mirror toe shine and heel. Now, because that is a premium, of course, it's one of those things where we have to sit there and just layer it and just buff it, and it just really goes by quite a bit. And with all those hard waxes also, you only do the toe basically probably from about here forward, and then the heel there, just the parts that don't really get much bend on them, because if you put it on the bendable parts, it starts to crack, like right in this area here. It's gonna crack and just look really bad. So even putting on the Pate Deluxe, if you put too much of it in that area, at that point it's pretty much just a display shoe. In other words, it's no longer going to be very wearable or anything. Had my son running around back there. Got the family here today. But anyway, so we've got that taken care of. Now I'm going to go ahead and get a neutral Pate Deluxe and go through the sole. Now I was thinking about going through with the Pomadier cream, the neutral Pomadier cream on it, but it does seem to darken things a lot more than a lot of the other stuff does. And because I put the Renovator cream on there, it did plenty good as far as darkening this edge up. Now it's not extremely dark, but it's dark enough, basically. You know, if we want to make it a little bit lighter, we technically can, but it won't have much of a finish or anything on it. It will look very, very rough, and we don't want that. I want it to look nice. I think I forgot to brush the inside heel area on this one. There we go. Happens. Kind of miss one of those small details. I mean, a lot of people tend to ignore that inside of the heel there. They either don't treat it, put any kind of finish or something on it. But I try to, and I hope I don't forget. But it can happen. I don't remember, I don't recall any times that it happened, but it can happen. So now at this point, I also didn't talk to this gentleman about it, but I'm going to go ahead and put on some of the Saphir sole guard. It's a very controversial product because of the price on it. A lot of people said, is it really worth spending that kind of money to, you know, treat the sole? You know, in my opinion, yes, if you're not getting your soles replaced or anything like that. Like, we replaced the heels on here and it's got that leather piece. That JR sole is heavily treated already. It's oak bark tanned, so it's going to be very durable. It's not going to take on moisture as easily and all that. And plus I did put a little bit of finish over top of it again, so we don't need to treat the heel. But the sole, I mean, it's worn, as you can tell, and we didn't replace it. And the ingredients in here, there isn't much to it. It's vegetable oil, 100%. But the key difference is it's highly refined vegetable oil, and the other thing is Saphir picks out very specific vegetables for this specific use. I mean, if you go to the store and buy some regular old vegetable oil, it's definitely not going to be the same. You can check out one of my other videos. I've done side-by-side testing. It just is not the same, definitely. You know, and for the price, I mean, this stuff does last you for quite some time. You don't need to use a whole lot of it. It's just, as you can tell, I just put a little bit on this rag and just rub it into an area at a time. And that vegetable oil is going to soak into the leather fibers of the sole a lot better than most other products. In that video, I used the Pomadier cream, the Seraphim cream, I used a few other things, and this other stuff worked amazing, but this really just got soaked into that leather sole better than anything else did. It penetrated deeper, and just, you know, that's what you're after, because it's a very thick, very dense leather that you're dealing with on the bottom of the sole. So you want something that will penetrate nicely into it, and the Saphir sole guard, that's what it's formulated for. You know, it's going to do your conditioning for the leather, which is always missed on the soles, and it's going to help a little bit with water repelling. Now, some people are thinking that because you'll put it on, it's going to repel water completely, you know, that it's going to all bead off, or completely, you know, you can pretty much walk on water. No, it's not. You know, the only thing that will work for that are silicone-based waterproofers, and even then, of course, you're not going to be able to walk on water with it. But even then, you know, you're really clogging up the pores of that leather, unfortunately, with silicones, and that isn't exactly a good thing. Unless you're in construction, you're using them for hiking or anything like that. But for day-to-day use, even in heavy conditions, if you live in an area where it rains a lot or snows a lot, this is going to be your best bet, because it's going to be safer, and it's not going to clog up the pores drastically in the leather, where eventually you'll start to see cracks forming. Silicone, unfortunately, will dry out that leather a bit more and cause it to kind of start degrading quicker. But again, water and the salt that gets absorbed into it will do the same thing, but this will help at least repel quite a fair amount of the water, as well as some of the salt too. You know, and just applying this treatment, you know, every once in a while, maybe once every 3 months to 8 months, whatever, maybe even once every 12 months, it's definitely going to be better than nothing, one. And two, it's going to last you for quite some time. You can see this bottle there. I haven't exactly used all that much out of this bottle, but I've done probably about 12.5 pairs of shoes with this stuff already. And you can definitely see I haven't used that much of it. You don't need to put globs of it on. You don't need to put a whole ton of it all. You don't need to pour it on there. You just rub it in, you know, just put some on the rag, same spot over and over, and just rub it in, massage it into the oil, or the sole, I'm sorry, and that's it. You know, you can go through and put a second coat on as well if you like, to help improve the waterproofing aspect of it. But you know, that's completely up to you. If you're just trying to treat the bottom to restore the nutrients, a single coat will do you just fine on that. But the other thing is, it's not going to change the color of your sole. As you can tell right now, it's darkened. That's because it's going to take overnight for it to really dry nicely and, you know, go back to original color. But once it's done overnight drying, then it's ready to wear. You're perfectly fine. You can wear it on the carpet, you can wear it on hardwood floor, outside, whatever it is. You know, you don't have to worry about it rubbing off onto your carpet and discoloring anything. Where, you know, if you use, say, a Pomadier cream, because it's solvent based, even though if you use the neutral, it shouldn't rub off, but the original sole finish may potentially rub off because the solvents in that Pomadier cream may have dissolved that finish just slightly and it starts flaking off or something. If you use a pigmented one, of course, that can possibly rub off and damage carpets or whatever you may be walking on, possibly with the coloring. So this will really restore it, make it look a lot nicer, especially if you're using something pigmented. But you got to make sure you're applying some form of clear coat on afterwards, and you're applying it either to a new sole or a sole that has never had any kind of finish. So let's say like a JR sole, like a full JR sole like this here. This hasn't had any kind of finish put on there. It's been treated heavily, but it has no finish on it. So we can apply this on here and it'll definitely darken up the leather quite a bit, but it won't rub off because it's soaked in. But if from the factory you got a new pair of shoes and they had a finish and it got worn off, it's not going to absorb and bind to that leather sole all that well. But anyways, at this point we're pretty much done now. I'm gonna have to put back the laces in and the shoe trees as well. But anyways, that's it's all done at this point pretty much. I hope you enjoyed the video and got to see a little bit extended work on a pair of heels, I guess you can say, as well as upper treatment on these with the Saphir Medaille D'Or, a little bit of sole guard put onto the original sole, and we changed the edging from a dark brown finish to a bit more of a neutral, kind of like a medium brownish finish there as well. But I hope you enjoyed the video. You know, I'm still getting used to it all. I'm new to creating and, you know, recording and editing videos like this, so bear with me. If you have any pointers or tips, feel free to let me know. I'm open to suggestions. Again, I'm not a professional. I'm a cobbler by trade. This is what I do, this is what I grew up, and this is what I love. I'm not a camera guy, unfortunately, so it's kind of a bit more raw footage. And as you can tell, you know, this is a family-owned business, so I got kids running around in the background like that right now, so it's gonna happen like that too. Can't exactly have a recording studio like that for myself. I'm a dad, can't do it, unfortunately. But I hope you enjoyed the video. You know, if you have any comments or questions, you know, please leave them down below. I'll be happy to respond to however many I can. I mean, again, it's a new channel, so I'll probably be able to respond to everyone's, at least, you know, with a thumbs up at the very least. I forgot to mention, if you're local here in the Denver area, feel free to stop by. We'd love to give any kind of pointers and tips on whatever you may need, and you know, we're always going to try to be as honest as we can with whatever you bring in. But if you're not local, just go to our website, CobblersPlusCO. If you have any questions or anything, you can message us, give us a call. We'll be more than happy to help however we can. If you're wanting us to work on any of your shoes, boots, or other leather goods, you can also mail them in to us. Just go to, again, our website, CobblersPlusCO. Under the Ship and Order tab, just follow the instructions, print out the PDF file, and send them on over, and we'll be happy to service whatever items you may have. So thanks again for watching, and we'll just see you next time then.